knowledge about how Toastmasters work. This evening, Lloyd Smith will narrow that range a little bit by presenting the successful club series module, the Toastmasters Education Program. Please welcome Lloyd Smith.
It struck me the other day that we really do have a wide range of seniority, I guess you'd say, ranging from Eric, about how long have you been in? 10 years in clubs? Two people have only been in a couple, 2 or 3 months. And so it's a good idea, I think, to remind ourselves every now and then about how the program works. The way to do that is through this handout. If you would take one of these and pass them around, please. The Toastmasters program has been around for a long time. It was embedded in I think the mid-1920s by a guy in Southern California who was a YMCA director, and he noticed that his young businessmen, that's what YMCA was back then, businessmen, were really bright, energetic people, but they weren't very good at expressing themselves. And so he designed a set of speeches, very similar to what's in our Competent Communicator module now, and used those as a training program. The idea caught on, and here we are with about 400,000 members worldwide now, 80-some years later. Here's the way to think about it. Let's look at this side of the handout first, please. Now, if you recall a few weeks ago, Vicki told us about the revitalized education program that was coming. She's one of our District 9 ambassadors for that. Forget all of that. It doesn't apply to any of us, really. And Vicki would say that too. We are all grandfathered in is what it amounts to because we are existing members. And as this finally gets introduced, we'll probably have an option whether to go with the new one or stay with the old one. But right now, this is the way it is. You'll notice here the way this starts, you see where it says new member over here? Then there are these 2 parallel tracks, the leadership track and the communications track. The idea is that Toastmasters does both of these things. It works on interpersonal communications, obviously, that's the top row. And it works on leadership skills, that's the bottom row. That is why, when you got your new member packet, you got 2 manuals. One of them is our friend, the Competent Communicator Manual. It has the 10 basic speeches. This is the core of the Toastmasters program. It's the oldest part of the program. The other manual is this one, the Competent Leadership Manual. You may have looked at this manual, thought to yourself, what's this for? And put it aside, because that's what most people do. What it's for is the bottom part of this, the leadership aspects. You may have discovered when you talk to people about Toastmasters, they'll tell you, well, I really don't need it because I do almost everything online, so on. And they may be right about that, but there isn't anybody who can claim they don't need the leadership part. I mean, do you know anybody who says, I don't want to learn how to be more efficient at meetings, I don't want to learn how to organize my time better, and so on and so on. The leadership track is underused, in my opinion, and underappreciated as well. Now, if you flip your handout over for a moment, this explains what you have to do for each of those boxes on the other side, like competent communicator, competent leader, and so on and so on. On the left-hand side of this is the communications track, and as you can see there, if you do a competent communicator manual with 10 projects in that, you get that award. You get a nice certificate, a suitable for framing certificate, and they really are suitable for framing, by the way. They're nice certificates. More importantly, though, you get the possibility of having a letter sent to your supervisor or boss or anyone you choose, your mom, I guess, if you wanted. And they're really pretty nice letters. It's from the executive director of the international organization. It goes on and on about how you voluntarily chose to participate in this demanding program to make yourself into a more skilled person, be better at work, and so on and so on. I know several people who have discovered that those things become part of their annual performance review. I mean, favorable parts of it. So that's actually worth something. They also send you 2 more manuals, advanced manuals. The Competent Communicator is the heart of the program, but there are 15 advanced manuals that are much more specific. For example, there are things like interpretive reading, I'm trying to think of some of the others, speaking before a video camera, storytelling, speaking to inform, humorous speaking, and a bunch of other things. We actually have a full set of those manuals, and so when you finish your CC and you're going to turn in the form, you can look at those advanced manuals to pick the 2 that you want. You notice there for Advanced Communicator Bronze, if you do those additional 2 manuals, then you get that award. As you move up the line, these guys are clever. They're psychological warriors, actually. When you get to Advanced Communicator Silver, it's a couple more manuals, but then notice, conducted any two programs from the Better Speaker Series or Successful Clubs Series. Those are kind of scripted Toastmasters modules. In fact, I'm doing one of them right now. And they are available online. I also have the full set in PDF form. I'd be happy to send those to you. Finally, you work down to Advanced Communicator Gold, and that's much more demanding. There are extra things to do there, is what it amounts to. On the leadership side, on the right-hand side, you can see here, if you do the little projects in the Competent Leader Manual, you'll get that certificate. Advanced Leader Bronze, you do a Competent Communicator Award, a Competent Leader Award, serve 6 months as a club officer, participate in the preparation of a club success plan, attend an officer training, and then do any two presentations from these modules again, and you've got one of those. Some of you may be thinking, well, I've done a bunch of that stuff. I've been a club officer. I've been to the training and all that. Yes, you have. You don't have to do these things linearly. In other words, you don't have to finish the CL before you do the stuff in the Advanced Leader Bronze and so on. And a lot of people don't realize that. One reason I'm doing this tonight is that I realized over the weekend I had a bunch of spare parts left over for another Advanced Leader Bronze. I just got to do two of these modules and then I'll have it. Where this gets tricky is down where it says Advanced Leader Silver. For this, you have to serve a complete term as a district officer, which means area governor or above, complete a high-performance leadership program, and then successfully coach, sponsor, or mentor a club. That's tricky to do, and that's actually the point where a lot of people fall out of the program just because they don't want to get that involved in it. Once you do all of these things, when you do all of the boxes, you too can become a distinguished Toastmaster. We have 3 of them in our club. That's a rather high percentage for our club. Christina's one, Pam Coleman is one, and I'm one. And I'm sure Christina would agree with this, and so would Pam if she were here tonight. We will be happy to help anybody who wants to pursue this with some advice and all that. There are no real shortcuts that I was able to find, and I'm pretty good at looking for these. There really aren't any shortcuts, but there are pitfalls to avoid, ways to avoid duplicating effort and that kind of thing, and it helps to have somebody who's actually done it before. There are about 1,200 people a year out of the 400,000, give or take, members who end up getting the DTM awards. So it's something of a big deal. I mean, that plus, $3 will get you a cup of coffee somewhere, Now, I personally encourage you to do as many of these things as possible. The most common time people quit Toastmasters is actually halfway through the Competent Communicator Manual. I'm not sure why. I mean, they've only got half the program. The second most popular time is at the end of it. They figure, I've done it. No, you haven't done it. Public speaking is something you never finish. I've been doing it for 40 years. And it's like every other skill. If you stop doing it in an organized way with feedback and whatnot, you start losing those skills. The same would be true of skiing or sewing or anything. If you quit doing them in an organized way and getting feedback and whatnot, challenging yourself, the skills begin to diminish. And that is the education. Look at that, right on time. All things are possible when you're highly organized. There's a lot of detail to this. Most of it is not anything anybody needs to hear about right now, but it's quite possible to do these things. You just have to get organized. The last thing I want to say is, please start bringing your Competent Leadership Manual to the meetings, okay? I ignored this for a couple of years, the first 2 years I was in, because I couldn't figure out what it was for when you got right down to it. And a former member of this club, Doug Taylor, actually read it. He was sick. And he didn't have anything else to do. And he read it, and he came to a meeting, and he said, this is actually pretty easy to do. And so Doug and I got in the habit of swapping manuals at every meeting, and slowly but steadily, or actually quickly and steadily, we work through this. You can do about, what would you guess, Christina, 80-85% of this right at the meetings, and then there's a little bit of extra stuff too. For example, Red doesn't know this, but by organizing this potluck, he is achieving Project 6 out of this manual, one of the hardest ones to get, actually. It's organizing a club special event. That's not a small thing.
That's right. Don't let it get to your head.
That's typically the last one anybody does because it's hard to find something that would work. But in any event, Toastmasters Leadership or Communications and Leadership Program, get involved. You paid for it, you might as well do it. Are there any questions?
Comment.
Comment? Oh, go ahead.
I would encourage you to get the leadership book out and read, at least browse through it.
Yeah.
It has a lot of good information. It talks about rules in the club, and what those rules are for. It has, as I say, a lot of good information that will help you as you work on things like being a timer or being a general evaluator. Don't just bring your book and thrust it at someone and say, I'm a general evaluator and I can find something that applies and check it off. It's your responsibility to look at the requirements in advance of the meeting so that you can be working on the skills that that particular signature requires. And I encourage you all to do that. It's going to make your experience in Toastmasters much better. You will get way more out of it than just working your way through the checkbox.
Right. And all of that stuff applies in the outside world too. There'll be like a half a page or a page about delegating authority or something like that. And then a couple of meeting rules, like say general evaluator, and talks about how you encourage the people on your team to work and so on. All of those things are applicable out in the real world. That's actually the point. You don't get that much out of being an expert Toastmaster. The idea is to get skills that you can use in the real world too.
Yeah.
But it's actually a really good manual. It's a lot better than a college textbook and that sort of thing because it's all practice and no theory. It's very much like the speech manuals are all practice and no theory, so they're superior to typical textbooks. Mr. Toastmaster.
Jack, do you have a question?
Now,
Now that we know we can get credit for part of our speech memorization, the party coordinator, let's have more parties in this town.
let's have one at a Seahawks game.
Let's cultivate an atmosphere of